Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the OGCA webinar series. Today, specifically, we're talking to two experts from IHSA. Again, no real need to give you a lengthy biography of them. You know them, Jennifer McKenzie and Enzo Garritano. Their biographies and their headshots were circulated as the invite in the meeting. If you want to know more about them, if you don't know anything about them, you've been living under a rock, because they're superstars in their own right. They're fantastic, and that's one of the reasons why we have them on today to talk about. Oh, someone just said they can't hear anything. Is it? Oh, that's not
We
good.
can hear you.
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, no, we had someone, I think it's Michelle Roberts. She's from IHSA. Michelle, shut down your system, bring it back up again. I'm an IT expert here. I don't know, that's the way it works. So, okay, so what I'd like to do is right off the bat is to let everyone know that if you have any questions about the topic today, we're going to be just having a chat with both Jennifer and Enzo. But if anyone has any questions specific to the topic, please put them in the chat or in Q&A. We are literally monitoring them as it goes, and we'll be able to provide, the questions directly to both Jennifer and Enzo on this one. So what are the reasons for the topic today is from a health and safety perspective, OGCA really values health and safety. It's one of the pillars and the foundations of what the association was built upon. We really make sure that, we just had a safety summit in March. There's always a continual conversation about safety and the betterment in the industry. And one thing that I have asked on multiple occasions to IHSA and Enzo particularly, we've had conversations on, is after you've got a health and safety expert, it looks like there's an alphabet after their name. There's just, letters upon letters upon letters, and it does get confusing. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times it's sensory overload. You don't know what it all means and whatnot. So I wanted to start the conversation kind of, can both of you speak to the importance of having a nationally recognized safety designation like NCSO? And can you explain to me what it is and walk me through it? So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and Enzo now.
Great, thanks, Giovanni. Appreciate this and appreciate OGCA's leadership in this. Right, it really matters to the industry that you have people who are bringing this forward and bringing information around health and safety and trying to get everyone home at night. That's our overall goal. And really, when you think about designations, especially NCSO, National Construction Safety Officer, that's what it's all about. It's really, well, it's about a number of things, but in the end, it's about recognizing people's competencies in health and safety. It's about recognizing their experience in health and safety. And it's about having them contribute to getting people home at night. And that national element is really about trying to be as consistent as possible across the country, and to ensure that when those, that designation, NCSO, or in the case of the National Health and Safety Administrator, that people will recognize it across the country. And we've worked hard with our Federation of Construction Safety Associations across Canada, the CFCSA, that we oversee, or the CFCSA oversees the national designation, and that Canadian Federation is on the same page. These are health and safety associations from across the country in the construction sector, or works with the construction sector to support them. And there was certainly a lot of impetus from over the years of the different designations that were out there. In our case in Ontario, it was the Construction Health and Safety Officer. So back in, this conversation started pre-2016, but the thought was, look, let's make this national. Let's make this clear to everyone that it's one designation, because other provinces called it the Construction Safety Officer or something else, the Construction Safety Coordinator. Having that one designation with with a consistent approach to the requirements and experience, said that, look, and it's equivalent here as it is in BC or in New Brunswick. So we can recognize that people do move in the industry, and they can, bring that designation with them as well. A little bit maybe more on your side, Jennifer, if you want to contribute more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely when we start looking at the NCSO and having that national recognition, is we look at employers, especially many of your members, probably Giovanni, with the general contracting, where they have projects all throughout the country. It's not just in Ontario. So when they're looking for health and safety professionals to hire to be able to travel throughout the country, it's really about making sure there's one designation that is recognized all the way through. And to Enzo's point, is it started out that there were different provinces that were not recognizing other provinces' designations. So that's really kind of where it started, was let's make sure that no matter where that individual goes in Canada, they're recognized, and employers recognize one standard instead of potentially ones that may limit others from coming interprovincially.
No, I find that it's so important, like overall, to ensure that we've got, consistency, right? Because when you've got it over all the provinces, because our members do work right across Canada. But Enzo, I just want to pick up on something you said. This started in 2016?
So the NCSO was recognized as that new designation in 2016. So the different provinces all agreed upon through memos of understanding through the CFCSA, with the exception of, I believe, Quebec, Jennifer, to this date, that yet there's a little bit going on different there. But yeah, the designation was signed off, and the different provinces all signed on board with a consistent approach to the training, a consistent approach to the requirements from 2016 forward. So we've been running this for quite a while, but really there's been a lot of momentum in the last number of years in regards to those in Ontario getting their designation and running through the requirements here.
So you just mentioned something I wanted to touch upon, which is the basis of consistency. How does IHSA, and then like all the provinces, ensure consistency? Because, there are other training platforms, I'm going to say Working at Heights, for instance, that they're not exactly consistent right across. And because of that, some people in the industry question, the provider and whatnot. So how does the IHSA ensure consistency to the program? I'm going to turn to Jennifer because you're the expert in the field. So.
Absolutely. So the CFCSA lays out the competency requirements and what must be covered. So when the program came into effect in 2016, there is a full review of the programs in each province to make sure that they met those competencies. So when we look at what is required, we're making sure that our programs meet the competencies that are laid out by the CFCSA. So it's really about making sure that the programs that are being offered meet that criteria. Now, when we look at it going back and forth to different provinces, because as you know, in Ontario, we do have two training standards, the Working at Heights and the Joint Health and Safety Committee certification. So for health and safety professionals working in the construction industry in Ontario, it is vital that they have those two training standards under their belt. So we have our general competencies, and then each province has the ability to add additional or make a standard, a requirement based on what that provincial legislation requires. So that's where in Ontario, we have the Working at Heights training standard because that is a legislative requirement, where other provinces will have what they classify in their province as the level. So whether it be, a fall protection or a different type of Working at Heights. So one of the changes, or one of the things that happens, is if I'm an NCSO, for example, in BC, and I want to come to Ontario, is upon their next renewal, they would be required to put their renewal through the province that they're currently residing in. So if I was residing now in Ontario, I'm doing my renewal. At that point in time, they would be required to meet the provincial requirements, being the Working at Heights and the Joint Health and Safety Committee certification. And then also they would need to complete our provincial exam, which demonstrates the competency in our Ontario provincial legislation, not just the national level.
So just to clarify that, and Jennifer, pipe in, because I don't want to screw it up, Giovanni, then we'll get a lot of calls and emails after. But in the end, there are those two requirements. There's a provincial exam in each of the provinces, and then the national exam. And because we are, again, unfortunately, each province is unique to some degree, that those unique requirements are still addressed or catered to with regards to this designation. So yes, we wish that we were equal across the board in one national exam and you're done, but because of the differences, you do require the provincial requirements, just to cover off on those mandatory requirements for the more specifically than others.
So I have a quick question on that. Can I hold an NCSO designation in multiple provinces at the same time?
It's one designation.
No, but what I'm saying is NCSO, you're saying, so I'm now the National Health and Safety Coordinator for insert company, and I'm working BC, I'm working in Alberta, I'm working in Ontario, and I'm working in Halifax and in Nova Scotia. I'm working in all 4 provinces at the same time. I'm overseeing projects in all. Can I hold NCSO in each one of the provinces? You're telling me that I can only do it upon the renewal at one time. Just curious, and I know I'm going to throw a stick in the ointment over here, because I've got to ask, because our members do work like this, and I want to make sure that there is the ability and the flexibility to jump from province to province to province and still hold that authority of a national designation.
Absolutely. So you're an NCSO. When you get your NCSO, you're an NCSO. You are seen as an NCSO in every province. What we do is, where you reside is where you would generally renew. So based on, if you're moving, you're not just traveling to a different province, you're actually moving to a new province. On that renewal, we would have you do Ontario's renewal
I see.
process.
Okay.
But you are seen as an NCSO for that 3-year period in any province that you go to. So there's no need for you, if I'm going to have a project in Halifax and I'm going to have one in Victoria, there's no need to go and have to do 2 NCSOs. You are an NCSO. It's about making sure that your home province is the one that you are designated under.
Well, that clarification really helps out, because in my head I was like, so every time I go to different provinces, I'm writing a different exam. I'm like, I don't want to work in all these provinces all of a sudden.
No.
I'm like, no, that's a lot of paperwork. But no,
we know that there's always opportunity for improvement into the process, and I'm sure people will identify areas that maybe are concerned and we are looking to improve upon. And we always encourage people to let us know if there are issues that we should be really catering to and trying to improve upon. So again, that's also another element. CFCSA is Canadian, right? And we're going to talk about Canadian made, right? But certainly the opportunity to make adjustments that make sense, that are convincing, that we need to move forward to make it more efficient, more effective, that's always on the table, because the Canadian Federation isn't just about setting the standard, it's about continual improvement in the standard, in the approach to it, in the implementation to it. So we've seen some recent changes. We're probably going to see more in the future, but it's all about trying to make sure that it's meeting the requirements, and also maintaining that standard that's expected out in the industry. And the changes can be made fairly flexibly and fairly rapidly, considering there's 13 partners. But in the end, generally good things prevail when we put our heads to it, and we have those opportunities to make the changes on a moving forward, in a rolling basis, not every 5 years we're going to do a review. No, it's about making sure that if something makes sense and it's something that's concerning, we'll see what we can do to make the changes through the federation itself.
I think that really gives a lot of credibility to the course, or the designation, because you're constantly evolving, and as the needs change, you're actually adapting to this.
Yeah, or if we see that there's something that's causing a barrier, like now we're talking about trade barriers across the provinces, and if there's something here that's being seen as, or maybe we didn't see it as a barrier before, in the new light of things, we may see things and say, oh, geez, we really need to make this change to be more consistent, or to more effectively run it as a national designation.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to it is we do meet regularly. So there is a committee under the CFCSA that meets regularly to review any concerns or questions or comments that are brought up through each province. So each province has a representative there. And we regularly talk about and try and work through and ensure that there's that consistency across province. So every now and then we'll get a circumstance that maybe we hadn't come across in the past. So we'll come together, we'll talk about, what is the best way to move forward, and making sure that there is that consistent approach all the way across the country.
So I've got a question from the audience. Thank you, Carmen, for putting this forward. But does the IHSA create a category of maintenance courses that can be taken? just want to make sure, I guess, from his perspective, in order to further their learning. So I think that's a great question. Is it like, do you have a page, a one-stop shop that I can see what I need, and are you always adding to that and making sure that, you know, the NCSO is being challenged in the sense where the individual recipients of that they're keeping up, are being kept abreast of the latest and greatest?
Absolutely. So we do have on our website, we do have under the renewal section, the professional development. We haven't dictated what you need to do. What we've done is we've provided some options of what would elevate your training, your knowledge, and your experience under that professional development. So we do have a list of courses, both internally with IHSA, but also externally, to look at where NCSOs can really start to build their knowledge, that experience, their auditing or maybe inspections above the entry level that NCSO has. And then in addition, we have been starting seminars. So we started about, I want to say 3 years ago. This year will be the 4th year that we've run an NCSO annual conference, where we bring in speakers. It's a half-day virtual event, again, and looking at topics that would elevate the individual or the NCSO's knowledge. And then we also this year started seminars, and that was based on feedback that we had received from our NCSOs is, can we have more regular touch points and greater seminars? So we've got a seminar coming up in 2 weeks on legislative changes. So looking to educate our NCSOs on what is the legislative change process, what are the legislative changes that have happened, how can they be implemented, and how can I stay up to date with them? So looking to build that knowledge base consistently as we go, instead of waiting until a 3-year mark and saying, oh, whoops, I need to do some professional development. So really trying to help them along the way.
So on that topic, though, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong again, with my numbers, sometimes I get it screwed up, but 8 hours of professional development for an NCSO over the 3-year period. So the question would be, well, how do I make sure that you guys know that I was at that event? Or do I have to register in and show them a proof of registration? Because those are important elements. If you're going to attend for 3 hours, one of our sessions, how do I get recognition for it? If you can maybe answer that question, because that's
so there's 2 requirements when you submit your professional development upon your renewal. So the first one would be a certificate of attendance. And that is, whether it's a certificate or an email, something indicating that you attended the session. And then what we look for is a course outline that includes the timeline. So how many hours was it? What did it include? And we're looking for information on specifically that is going to raise or elevate your knowledge or your education specifically to health and safety. And the hours is what's based on. So if we're attending a conference, for example, and it's a full day conference, we'll say what we do is we take that 8-hour conference and then it's divided by 50%. And 50% would be 4 hours, and that would be what you're granted towards your professional development. So what we're looking for is 2 things. Conferences and seminars are great, but we also want to see formal training or education as well. So we look for 4 hours minimum of education or training, and the other 4 hours can be any point of seminar or conference that they've attended.
Interesting. So go ahead, Enzo. Sorry.
No, and those are 50%, Jen, in regards to the hours. 50%.
The hours are the hours are calculated at 50% for conferences and seminars, just because nobody's really making sure you're there the whole time, right? Like you've signed in and then you're potentially there. Where a training program, you are granted the hours in which you attended that training program. So if it was an 8-hour training program, you get 8 hours.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I want to focus in, you touched upon the individual. I want to kind of like broaden that a little bit, because I'd like to start at the individual basis and then grow it out a little bit. But can you tell me, like, from, I guess, your point of view, IHSA, that is, how is this new designation helping construction workers? And then not only that, but how does it make health and safety professionals, how does it advance their careers?
Absolutely. So feel free. Enzo, do you want to jump in first?
Yeah. Well, I think certainly the designation itself is really, giving credit to those who have the experience and who have taken those programs. But in the end, we know a lot of people get into more of these health and safety roles, maybe their peripheral kind of safety roles, just because of their interest or because of something that's occurred on site. But people start off in, whether it's in the trades or whether it's in supporting the work, that's where they started. A lot of us, and probably right here sitting in the three of us here anyway, may not have started as saying, hey, we're going to be health and safety professionals in our lives, but we want to contribute towards health and safety. So this is recognition for that. This is recognition that, look, once you've demonstrated your competencies around the health and safety elements in the training, but also the experience, because the experience is so hugely critical here, because without context, the knowledge isn't going to help you, right? It certainly helps you to a certain degree, but context to the industry and how it applies to the industry is where the value is. And this is what the designation does. It really rounds out someone's full experience and full competency in one package. So employers can benefit, workers can benefit. In the end, it's about people getting home at night that benefit, because everyone now is contributing through a lens of health and safety who have that designation. It's not just about getting the designation and closing your eyes to it. It's about contributing on a day-to-day basis around health and safety in the workplace, because again, this is about those who have experience in the workplace and continue to work in the workplace. And certainly it can help their careers, and we can chat about that, but in the end, it's about helping the workplace set a strong foundation of health and safety in an organic way. It's not about saying, I'm going to hire a bunch of people. Nothing wrong with people who are going through the school element, I'm saying, but more so around those who have built up the experience and the competency in the health and safety element is a very strong foundation for that company and for the colleagues on the workplace, because now they certainly are seeing things differently. But yeah, Jen, if you want to just add.
Absolutely.
So values.
Yeah, to your point, Giovanni, like when I'm looking at an individual, right? So me as an NCSO is, what does the NCSO personally bring me? And to Enzo's point is, it does build my knowledge, right? So my knowledge of both provincial and federal legislation, best practices, hazard assessments, inspections, etc. Also health and safety management systems, right? So we see a lot of NCSOs that end up going to a smaller business that may not have a health and safety management system in place. And it's really a way that they, when I look at that broader job opportunities, I now have that knowledge that I can take into an organization that maybe is new or is new to health and safety, is looking to bring their level or their benchmark up. So I have that opportunity myself now with that knowledge I've gained to be, I'll say, a better applicant for when individuals or companies are looking for hiring. In addition, I now have, as we've said before, a nationally recognized designation. So I don't need to stay in Ontario. I can go to anywhere. And I'm also, when we start looking at those larger organizations like our general contractors, I'm now a better representation that can go across provinces to those different projects that I might have. The career advancement, the job opportunities is a huge, I would say, high level indication of who we are and what we've done to get kind of to that point. And we've seen now many employers that now require an NCSO. So before, you used to see, a health and safety designation, where NCSO really is about what employers are now looking for. They understand the competencies that you're going to get with an NCSO. So that national recognition is huge. And then in addition, you expand your network and your access. So I'm not sure how many people are online today, but I know when we have our NCSO conferences, we have upwards of 200 people. We have networking opportunities. We get to meet people in, maybe different trade or sectors than what we're used to dealing with. We now have a large network that we can gain knowledge and further experience from, and have that ability to ask questions, right? When we look at NCSOs, I'm not going to be, I might come from carpentry as a trade, and that's really where my knowledge base is. But as an NCSO, you may get hired with a company that might be doing ironwork. So how do I reach out and get some experience from other NCSOs and share my knowledge and gain knowledge or best practices? That's one of the other big things, is just getting that help and that assistance behind us to know where to go, right? We've made connections, whether it be with the IHSA or our consultants or other individuals in the sector. So it's really about your knowledge, your experience, and then that professional capacity to then be more wanted by the industry, right? And to Enzo's point is it's about having that personal reflection about what now I can do and how I can help people make sure that they go home at the end of the day.
So I've got a question again, hypothetically speaking. I'm a new graduate. I've just come out of, university, college, whatever the case is. Can I write NCSO right out of college or university? And I saw practical knowledge and experience and all that stuff. Clearly, I'm lacking all of that unless I grew up on a job site, which, you may have done in the summers, but or if you're the son of an immigrant, that's a long story. But anyway, the point is that, if you're getting into it, can I achieve that designation early on, or do I have to do a number of years in the actual industry before I qualify for it?
Absolutely. So I'm going to just back up one slide here. So the elements of the certification there's 4 different elements to it. There is that training and education, as you speak about, part of it, but there is also that practical experience. So there is a requirement for 3 years of practical on-site field experience in the construction industry. And then in addition, we have other practical requirements that you must demonstrate competencies for communication, inspections, and auditing. And then there's the exam. So when we go back to your question is, no, you can't right out of school become an NCSO.
Yep.
However, we do have our National Health and Safety Administrator. And what the National Health and Safety Administrator is, the certification, and again, this is a national standard through the CFCSA, it is about giving that stepping stone for individuals who want to get into health and safety but don't have the practical experience. Mm-hmm. So they have the similar requirements except for the practical experience. That is taken out. So they don't require any practical experience. They require the knowledge and the training. They require those competencies to be demonstrated, and they require the exams. But it's really about doing the NHSA. Really what we see is people, to your example there, coming out of school will come get their NHSA. That helps get them into an organization in the field. They gain their 3 years of field experience, and then upon their renewal, they're generally coming back and then going through and getting their NCSO. It's really that stepping stone. With that being said, is we often have many support, health and safety support people inside an organization that may never see the field. So the NHSA also allows them to be knowledgeable and assist the organization and their NCSO or their health and safety professional and support them through that administrative side, but may never gain that field experience. So there's kind of that 2 options for the NHSAs.
Well, it makes sense because if you're pushing paper, and I'm not, downgrading that, but if you're in the office actually doing it, you have to be familiar with the whole health and safety realm. So the NHSA makes sense from that standpoint. But if you're on the field, you really need that practical hands-on knowledge, right? That really ties the missing piece together. I think that's very cool. Enzo, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the requirements are 3 years of practical experience in the last 10 years. So that through the application process, you have to demonstrate or provide evidence of 3 years of in the field experience over that last 10 years. So if you said, well, I was in the field 20 years ago, well, that may not cut it, but in the last 10 years, if you had 3 years, that's the minimum requirement for the NCSO itself.
So you've got your NCSO. So again, hypothetically speaking, I'm a carpenter. You had mentioned, Jennifer, I'm a carpenter, and I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've got all this actual hands-on industry experience, but I have no designation. How does the NCSO curriculum itself tie into my work experience and really highlight and how does it make it relevant for, obviously Ontario construction workers and whatnot? So walk me through that, please.
Yeah. So if you're, a carpenter by trade and you've decided, you're sick of maybe being on the tools, or maybe you've gotten into, you want to be a health and safety professional. And we see that often. We see many tradespeople often, as you know, they may have had 15, 20, 25 years in the trade, looking for something that's a little, I'll say, less burdensome on their body. And they take that knowledge and they bring it over into the NCSO. So I've met, when I'm looking at the elements, as a carpenter for 20 years, I've met my requirement for the field experience. Now I need to see what do I have for the level of training and knowledge and education. And so the training requirements are really laid out to look at specific elements for an NCSO. So we have, I'll start off with our Joint Health and Safety Committee certification. So we want to make sure that individuals who are NCSOs understand the requirements and know how to support a Joint Health and Safety Committee. So the Joint Health and Safety Committee Part 1, as we know in Ontario, is generic for all workplaces. The really honing in on it is that Joint Health and Safety Committee Part 2, which needs to be construction specific. And that's really talking about those top 10 hazards that we see in construction that often are causes for critical injuries or fatalities. And then we get into looking at what are the tasks or the role that my NCSO is going to be doing? Well, they're going to need to inspect the workplace. So we have inspection as part of the requirements. They're going to need to investigate potentially, complaints or incidents or fatalities. So again, there's that investigations element to it as well. They're going to need to support their company's health and safety management system. So we need to make sure that they have that knowledge and understanding of a health and safety management system, how to, what's the difference between policies, procedures, what would be the requirements under the different elements for auditing purposes, and how to audit. So all of those elements, really what we've done is we've taken what does an NCSO do? What would they be responsible for? And the CFCSA indicated that these are the core roles that we need to make sure they have training and knowledge in. So we take the training and knowledge and the experience. We demonstrate some of that through the competencies. So doing a workplace inspection, submitting a workplace inspection, completing a communication. So whether it be, an orientation or a safety talk, and then also completing a audit. So whether that be a full core audit or a student audit. And then once they've completed all those elements, they've put that through in their application, it's been reviewed and approved, then they have the 2 exams. They have the national exam, which is the same for all NCSOs across Canada. And then we have our provincial exam, which is about provincial legislation and requirements and really touches to make sure that they have that knowledge and understanding of Ontario legislation.
Interesting. So again, I'm going to ask strictly for selfish purposes, but from an employer standpoint now, I'm putting taking off the employee's hat, put on the employer's hat. I'm now an employer. Now you've mentioned some benefits, but I want to make sure that you've captured all the key benefits for the employers out there, because obviously NCSO is a higher designation. It's something more widely recognized now that we're national, but what are the real, benefits for me as an employer?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say, Enzo, go ahead. You jump in.
No, I was just gonna say high level. Again, it's an assurance of support for your health and safety system. Mm-hmm. It's about contributions not only from the health and safety department, but it's about the workers in each of the places that you do work in, right? It's those who are at the ground level, those who are supervising potentially who got their NCSO as well. So it doesn't put up a barrier as to who can get this designation, right? Because it's practical experience plus these programs. And a lot of these programs, companies would put their staff through them along the way anyway, not necessarily for the designation, but basics of supervising, mm-hmm. Or working at heights or the Joint Health and Safety Committee, defensive driving, those kinds of courses. So this wraps it all up and says, now the package is here and anyone can achieve it. Anyone who's got the practical experience can achieve this, which means now we've got really good coverage from a foundational health and safety perspective right across the company. So it's giving me assurances that our structure can be supported in all the different aspects, in the field, in the shop, on the road, wherever the case is. So it's not just a formal department that takes care of it, but now you've got a whole bunch of folks who can support the system. I think that's one big benefit that people have to see and really realize that that's probably a strong way of approaching health and safety. It's right across the board. Jen?
Absolutely. And I think like just to add to that is that support to the health and safety system in that organization then, goes to, then you have a stronger safety culture within your organization on the work site. You're going to have improved health and safety performance, right? Because now you have that support that is needed to identify hazards, to look at, appropriate controls, does appropriate inspections or incident investigations, and comes out with preventative those preventative controls that we need to put in place to reduce incidents and injuries on the job sites. It's really about, I now have somebody that I can lean on and that can assist me in ensuring that I'm meeting all of those health and safety requirements, whether it be legislative requirements, but also just looking at that culture. How do I get people to care more about safety? You get people to care more when you have somebody that's educated to help educate them on the importance of safety. So we look at that safety culture as a big one. As Enzo said, really supporting their health and safety management system, or even maybe developing their health and safety management system. But then we start looking at the benefits of, lower costs, whether that be through WSIB premiums or incidents that are happening. We look at, a higher level of compliance. And then it also gives us that competitive advantage because we know that when we are looking at bidding on projects, a lot of times our injury rates are looked at, our WSIB is looked at. We are looking, many organizations look for a designation like CORE or ISO or SOCI, right? So with having an NCSO on, they help an employer gain all of these items, which then gives them that competitive advantage when they're looking for work as well.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate just because that's kind of my nature. I'm going to poke a little bit here. So are you telling me, so I've now come into a company, I'm working for a company, they have a health and safety policy program, and I'm following the health and safety policy program. You're telling me that if I'm NCSO designated, I will be that much better at following the program, or will it allow me certain insights in order to like better the program, tweak it, and make it so that the company is more protected type thing? I guess I did hear from you that, you have a network of NCSOs that they can all share knowledge, and OGCA is big on, health and safety is not proprietary. This is something that we want to share. So it sounds to me that they, instead of just following a program, they then have insight in order to really make it blossom and grow. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can review it and they can identify, where we can elevate it. Like I said, we've seen many NCSOs that come into organizations and they're hired because there is no health and safety management system. And so those NCSOs have gained that knowledge and that insight and that experience to be able to, if they needed to, build a health and safety management system from the ground up. And there's that support there, not only through the knowledge and training, but also through the network, also through all, like as you said, all of those health and safety courses and resources that are available to them.
So Giovanni, also, if I can, also, as general contractors, many general contractors, as we know, have achieved certification to one standard or another, whether it's core ISO or whatever the other systems are. Now we know general contractors sub out a lot of work, right? Your general contractor, you got a bunch of subs. So the great network opportunity there as well is, again, you've got your NCSOs at the general contractor level, but then you more than likely have NCSOs at the subcontractor level who understand what you're doing as a general contractor from a health and safety management system because they've been trained in it already. They've got training under core, in our case, with the internal auditor and essentials. They've done an audit. So now you've got people in the subcontractors who, with an NCSO designation, can contribute to your general contractor program. And again, extend your reach as a general contractor into the subs and their subs and the subs that work beside them as well. So I think there's a huge benefit in that as well. And that again, you've got strong points right across the way you do business as a general contractor.
So I'm going to ask from a general contractor's perspective, is this a push or a pull system? Do you find that general contractors are pulling, like is there a demand for NCSO designation out there, or is it the industry's pushing NCSO as the best I guess, scenario, or the best designation. I just want to hear from you, like, which would it be? Would it be from the contractors really demanding it, or is it the industry kind of like driving it forward?
I would say there's a little bit of both. We definitely
Okay.
have general contractors that require it. So we definitely see where we're getting people who are coming to us for the NCSO that are saying, my contract, my employer is requiring this of me. It was part of my contract. I must get it within, so much time from when I come on board. And they require them to renew it. So there's definitely some contractors that I would say are definitely pushing it and saying they must have it. But I do see the industry as a whole, and I'll say safety professionals, is people now, we've been in business with the NCSO since 2016, is people now are recognizing we have almost 1,000 NCSOs in the province. We are actively looking at anywhere between 150 to 250 applications a year coming through for either one of the designations. And most of those are people that have said, I want to be in safety and construction, and I know that this designation is what I should have. So I think we're starting to see both. Is people in the industry now know what an NCSO is. They're seeing those benefits of having an NCSO. So we have employers pushing it, but as individuals, we're also knowing more about it. We're hearing about it. We're being asked about it. So we're seeing that importance of having an NCSO on the job site as well.
So again, we've looked at it from an individual workers level. Now we've talked about, the contractors level. So I'm hearing from you, and I just want to make sure I'm correct in this, that like all the tide raises all ships type thing. So from an industry perspective, this NCSO designation is helping to raise health and safety. Is it just the awareness, or are you literally moving the standard up in Ontario?
I would say that we're definitely raising the standard up in Ontario, doing that through every single NCSO. And I think one of the things that we continue to see is how our NCSOs will grab onto one thing and then really make sure that they're making that change inside their organizations and inside the industry as a whole. And I'll just touch on the See Something, Say Something campaign that we recently launched. And many NCSOs that gravitated to that, and now that is like a focus, is how do we change the culture in our job sites? How do we change the culture in the industry as a whole to raise that level of caring, right, for each other and for others? And I mean, there's lots of different examples. That's just one more of a recent, but we definitely see where they're taking their jobs to a different level. It's not just a job. It's about having, at the end of the day, being able to say, I made a difference today. And we see that difference through, we've just seen like a reduce in WSIB premiums. We, although our critical injuries and our fatality numbers, if you look at them just the way that we're looking at them, is they're not going down. But then we start to dig into is they may not be going down, but they're not going up. And we've also, when we start looking at it, we have more full-time equivalent employees and more hours being worked than we did, 10 years ago with the same numbers. So we have to look at things a bit differently. But definitely, I would say, is as an industry as a whole, with an NCSO being kind of a base foundation in an organization, you're definitely starting to see the industry change. Because to Enzo's point, if I'm a general contractor and I have an NCSO and I have my health and safety management system, it's now coming all the way through all of those subcontractors and those requirements. And now we're elevating all of those individuals to meet the same requirements. So although it might be my program, all those subcontractors still need to follow it, and we're ensuring and bringing them up to that level.
So I've got a point of clarification I'm going to ask simply because it came from our audience. Christy asks, basically, you had mentioned that there are over 1,000 NCSOs in the province. Are you using NCSO and IHSA designations interchangeably, or is there like 1,000 NCSOs and another 1,000 NHSAs? There's a lot of acronyms I'm throwing out. I apologize, but
Only two.
I'm trying to follow this as well. It's like, and this is brought to you by the OGCA, so yet another acronym. Anyway, so like
there you go, 3. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So we have the NCSO. We are almost at 1,000 NCSOs in the province. The NHSA was just launched about 2 years ago. So we are still continuing to build, and I believe we're just over 100 NHSAs. So yeah, so that's kind of where our numbers are sitting without me pulling them up and looking at them right this second.
Understood. But the basis is they are really focused on the NCSO, the NHSA. From what I heard you say was it's a supportive role.
Right.
That's correct.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. No, that's good. No, and Christy, thanks for the question. That was like people are making sure that you are held to a different standard. I'm just saying, this is awesome.
That's okay. I'm good. I'm okay with that.
Yep. So again, I'd like, from IHSA's perspective, I'm hearing that there's a ton of benefits for the industry. How does IHSA though work with the industry partners and stakeholders really to ensure and maintain the integrity of this program and the designation so that it is seen as the pinnacle? Walk me through that.
Right.
Yep.
Well, in our case, I mean, we certainly have the credibility of the programs that we provide over the last so many years and decades in the history there. The confidence that we're working with our system partners across the country, I think, is another element here. And the CFCSA members are all of the same type as ourselves. They're industry associations, not-for-profits. We're looking at elevating the bar right across the country. We're not in it for any other purpose. Definitely want to ensure that the folks who are getting this designation deserve the designation and be recognized for that designation and what they've earned there. And there's a maintenance as well, right? So the maintenance piece, like other designations, we're not unique in that manner, but it's about practical elements of health and safety in the field, I think, and that's a critical piece here. It's about applying what you learn to contributions in the field to ensure people get home. And I think there's a real strong element, like Jen was saying, about cultural issues there, about making sure that people care. And the more that you have in that ilk or that type, and that's what we're trying to increase awareness of, is about the culture of care when it comes to health and safety in the field. Your neighbor counts. It's not just about you and your company. It's about you, your neighbors, anybody who's working in that environment that counts. So the credibility, again, in the course that we provide, yes, sometimes we're sticklers because it is our designation, and we just can't accept other people's programs because they have the same name in that program. It's about the delivery of the program by competent instructors, and it's about validation of your competencies by our processes here as well. And again, those processes are shared across the country. So we're trying to maintain a level or a standard that people can rely on and have faith in and trust in. That's a huge element here. So, some people do argue and bring their case forward that, hey, you should recognize my own basic supervising program. Well, we just don't know who delivered it, right? So there's the element of the learning. There's also the element of was what was on the curriculum actually put forward to you in the classroom, and same with the other programs. So there are certain programs that you have to take ours, but there's other programs that will allow equivalency from other providers. Maybe Jen, you can fill that in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted just to back up for a quick second as well, is I think when we look at who we're hearing from Giovanni and how we keep that network going. And so, Enzo mentioned the CFCSA, and from that level is really about, what are those competencies. But we also look at it from the provincial level and the individual level and the employer level. So when we are, rolling out NCSO changes, for example, is we're making sure that we are speaking with some of those, I'll say, larger contractors that really do push it. We hear about, what maybe if we need to make a change is looking at, like, what are the needs? So what are the needs from the employer? What did they need? What does the individual need? So a few years ago, we did a full review of our exams and identified where individuals were struggling. And so that is where some of our changes came from, was, okay, so this is an area we're finding people just maybe aren't getting enough of the knowledge or the education, or aren't being able to use it enough. So how can we up that level. So we always hear from the individuals, we look at results, we take what our NCSOs or individuals that are going through the process and take their feedback, but we also have the employers, and we have many employers that we work with side by side that require the NCSO. So when we're making changes, really understand how things can be rolled out and how they're going to be able to support it internally in their organization as well. So, I don't want individuals to think kind of it's, this is the way it is and nothing can be done. Is we really do try and listen and hear from all different levels, whether it be at the provincial industry level or the employer level or at the employee level, and really take that feedback. And I'll say the changes that have happened over the last 5 years are because of that feedback. We've heard the industry, they've asked for different things. Our new portal system is a great example of it, looking for ways that we can support not only the designation, but the industry as a whole easier. So I think, to Enzo's point, we start looking at the competency level. That is determined by the CFCSA, right? They've determined these are the competencies an individual must have. And we've made sure when we launch our programs that they meet those requirements from the CFCSA. When individuals put together, a requirement or put forward a training course that is not an IHSA program, it's very difficult for us to be able to determine that same level of competency because we didn't build the program. We don't know how it's being instructed or directed. And that's why there are certain core programs that we have that can't be utilized from another company because there are so many competencies built into that program under that CFCSA requirement that for us to take everybody's program and have to do a full review of it is not something that we would have the ability or capacity to do. So that's why there are some that are specific that will only be an IHSA program.
And I'm going to basically reiterate what the CPO's office, Chief Prevention Officers, Dr. Joel Moody said at the Safety Summit, and that not all training is equivalent. And he had mentioned it in regards to the Working at Heights, and they are doing an analysis and a review of the Working at Heights program and the delivery of it to ensure consistency because of your point that you raised. That you've got not all training providers are equal. So I can understand why, you want control over this because it is a national program and it is something that should be the pinnacle. And so like by diluting that, you actually dilute the brand. And
we're not
so
looking to lower the bar. Yeah, we're not looking to lower the bar.
And so like that would be, I get that. So I want to make sure that how is the IHSA keeping it current, like the NCSO program itself? How are you keeping it current? Because again, you've got emerging technologies, risks, legislations, and then not even talk about the tariffs and all that stuff. How does that affect it? And like there's so many elements that you really have to encapsulate in a national program. How is it affected? And I want to go back again. Second part of the question would be the interprovincial, barriers. Does this really drop those barriers so that you're equivalent across the way?
So we're certainly striving for that more and more so, and certainly this new lens of interprovincial barriers, more so highlighted recently than in the past, drives a lot of the work of the committees, drives a lot of the work when we meet on an annual basis. We meet twice on an annual basis as a full group, but as Jen said, they meet however often you meet. I can't recall offhand, but as and Jen is the chair of that committee, to drive change, to look at those things and to identify where those barriers are, where those hiccups are, where those opportunities for improvement are, and to start to work those. So it's not about a stagnant thing and see in 5 years, we'll figure it out and review it in 5 years. No, it's about a live move forward. And again, we'll always bring back something that we feel is necessary to the committee or to the full group, and we'll have the debate there and we'll have the discussion there and we'll try to come to resolution there because everyone there at the CFCSA level is dedicated to ensuring that we do make improvements. We're not about status quo and leaving it. It's about ongoing changes to make sure that it's relevant, it's meaningful, and again, will it break down barriers? Those are the kind of things that we're all committed to. So again, having that Canadian base in the designation with provincial oversight and review, gives you that opportunity to make sure that it is a live and growing kind of designation and opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, and going back to just the first part, Giovanni, is we regularly review. So as Enzo was saying, the NCSO committee under the CFCSA, every province, we meet quarterly and we go through things quarterly. Is there anything that needs to be updated or changed or strengthened, or are there any concerns that have come forward that we need to address? The national exam gets reviewed generally biannually. We take the results, we make sure that they're in line with, if we're finding there's a struggle, we might change the word or the language that's being used in those exams. And then our courses, like our IHSA courses, are always being updated to ensure legislative changes or requirements or best practices are included there. So I know we just did a full revamp of all of our NCSO resources. We built a whole bunch of new resources. We provided additional support. Now the exam prep session is an on-demand webinar. So we're always looking at ways and how we can keep up, but also how we can make it better.
So again, this is one aspect of it. One of the reasons why the OGCA really wanted to have this webinar is from the information standpoint. What does it all mean? And again, this was strictly, me wanting to really understand the new program. And I'm sure that a lot of the contractors out there share my perspective. It's like, okay, this is new. And if I wanted further information, because again, an hour flies by when you're having fun with friends, and this has been a great conversation. If I wanted, as a contractor or even as an individual, wanting to learn more about the program, where could I go to really dive in depth in order to really understand all the criteria that I need in order to get this?
Absolutely. So our IHSA.ca website is the best place to go. So it's IHSA.ca/NCSO. We'll provide you all of the details, and it is split up to like a general overview, and then it gets into an NCSO requirements, and NHSA requirements, renewal requirements, and exams. So all the resources are there. There's a wealth of information there. I would say start with our NCSO guide. And our guide really provides that breakdown of all the requirements. That would be my first spot, and I think Michelle just put it in the chat, so thank you, Michelle. And if there's questions after you've reviewed kind of what's online, feel free to reach out. We have an administrator, so Marie Henry, which I think is also on the call today. So it's NCSO administrator at IHSA.ca. If there's questions and you're not sure of the answer, or you're not, able to find them online, by all means, please feel free to reach out to her at any point. And we'll make sure that we connect with you as well and get to you where you need to go. But the webpage, we did, as I said, just did an overhaul in February, and we've really made sure that any of those questions that we were seeming to get that maybe wasn't highlighted really where the answer would be, we've built a new FAQ. We've really spent a lot of time on making sure that everything that you need is available there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask kind of like a capstone question here. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Michelle, for putting the email in the chat for everyone. Other than world domination, what role do you see NCSO playing, again, in shaping the future of the construction and again, health and safety experts in construction? Just give me a quick synopsis of it. I'm going to hear first from Jen, ladies first. And I got to say, Jen, you've done fabulously. For everyone out there, Jen's suffering from like severe allergies and can barely breathe. And so I'm shocked that she's been able to do this without sneezing all over the screen. So thank you for that. That's been fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Giovanni. So where I see it going is, although it is not mandatory and probably will never be mandatory in the province of Ontario to have a health and safety professional as part of your organization, I do feel that the NCSO is going to be that level that every organization is going to look to say, I want to protect my workers. I want to make sure everybody goes home, and that NCSO will provide me that assistance and that support to get me there. So there are provinces, and like Quebec, that do have requirements that Ontario doesn't for that health and safety professional. And although it's not legislated here, I think as an industry, we are moving in that right direction to say that health and safety is vital, is important, and we need to be looking at that, and we need to have that support in place for our workers.
Fantastic. Enzo, you get the final word on this.
Oh my gosh, perfect. No pressure. And I think the one thing that everyone really looks at is health and safety in the workplace and wellness is not an individual. It's not residing with an individual, a specific individual. It resides with everybody, right? And this NCSO can help support the employers, whether it's the OGCA members or others, can help support that journey to make sure everyone gets home at night. It's another spoke in the wheel. It's about saying we all contribute, and we can contribute at a higher level. We know we can, and there's knowledge out there that we can gain, and we can take advantage of and bring it together with the experience that we have. And that's what the NCSO does as a designation. It gives that credibility to experience and the knowledge to bring things forward. And I think the more that we have people in that space, the more that the industry moves forward from a health and safety perspective. So everything we can do, 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about this in the same vein, but today we can, because we know that there's a lot of interest that comes out from people. Again, or I'll use the word organically again, in the industry. And I think that's a good thing. People see the importance of see something, say something, watch for your neighbor. Health and safety isn't proprietary. All those kinds of pieces that go together to say it takes all of us, like it takes a community to raise someone. It takes a community to make people get home at night safely, and NCSO is one of those strong elements. So Giovanni, thank you for this opportunity. Great to speak to everybody, and we should do this more often on different topics, because I think there's great interest in keeping awareness on health and safety at the highest level. Thank you.
I
Awesome.
want to
Thanks,
thank you
Giovanni.
both, Jennifer, Enzo. You guys have been spectacular. And again, we just had a chat. It's been a lot of fun just chatting with you and learning more about NCSO. But I do want to thank IHSA for everything that you do when it comes down to health and safety, the perspective that you take not only from the worker, but the contractor and the industry as a whole. You really bring it together, and you've got an awesome perspective on health and safety. And again, the tide raises all ships, and in this case, you are definitely the tide. So thank you very much, IHSA and Jennifer and Enzo, for wanting to enlighten us today. It's been a lot of fun.
Great.
Thanks, Giovanni.
Okay, thank you all in all, and stay tuned for more webinars coming out from OGCA. Love to have all of our members participate. Any suggestions that you may have, please send them out to the IHS or to the OGCA. We're happy to take them and run with them. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
IHSA. Work safe for life.